The boy from survivors, victims, family members, and witnesses of South Sudan conflicts call to end the conflict-related violence. All the victims of violence are accountable. This report is conducted in Juba, South Sudan, POCs. The location of the incidents are different. The boy from survivors, victims, family members, and the witness of South Sudan conflicts call to ending the conflict-related violence in South Sudan and holding the perpetrators of violence accountable. This report is compiled in Juba POC, and the interviews I conduct in different settings. In this first edition paper, the history from four survivors of Leer human containment, sexual-based violence, forceful disappearance, and arbitrary arrest in Nile Security Service Blue House. But in this narrative video, I'm going to focus only to the one survivors, which is John, the survivors of arbitrary arrest from Nile Security. The Junub Aid Media and the Office of Nile Star Global, NS Global Organization, published this monthly awareness paper jointly as a call to ending conflict-related violence in South Sudan, holding the perpetrators of violence accountable. It contained the funding of investigation conducted by the Fellows of Human Rights, of Media and Tribunal Justice academic into the human rights violation and abuse, the violation of international humanitarian law during the fighting between SPLM-AIO and South Sudan Joint Government Force, affiliated armed militant group and comprised community-based militant. War crime committed by various arms, explanation alarms highly by many family members were the loss of their beloved ones, and forceful disappearance, property destructions, raping, arbitrary arrest in case of attacks on the village. Family were often forced to fly repellers and were unable to recover the body and unaware where the body had been buried. In other instances, individuals were perceived to be very alive in the mass grave in Juba, Bentiu Town, Rubkona, Mayom, Koch, Guit, Leer, Mayiendit, Torit, Wau and Renk. These monthly publications highlight the facts and the steps to be followed about the tribunal justice repair to the sets of the judiciary and the non-judiciary systems and the text to address the legend of the massive human rights abuse. This includes, among the other, customer accountability mechanism, truth-telling process, mobilizations, initiative, compensation, and repatriation, institutional reform. We were mentioned in the peace agreements of RASCS of South Sudan. The past major nature cycle of the violence in South Sudan has been uprooted deeply in certain culture of impunity, which tragically call for the accountability and consequences prevents the victim from seeking justice, in which there is a need of awareness about the past crime and atrocity prevention through media and tribunal justice concept. There are some indicators that there is a window of opportunity to make the progress toward awareness through the storytelling by the victims, survivors, or the witness of the crime, atrocity, regionally or internationally, at the national level also. With the political dimension in the government of South Sudan and the pressure from the foreign states, progress formation of Ivory Coast is possible. Present the new window opportunity for restoration of peace and national reconciliation, state buildings, social reconstruction. Agreement include tribunal justice preventions, include the creation of tribunal justice mechanism. In this monthly publication, with the call to support Chapter 5 of Peace Agreement, establish the three mechanisms for tribunal justice. 1. The Commission for Truth, Reconciliation and Healing, CTRH. The Ivory Coast of South Sudan. 3. Compensation and Repatriation Authority, CTRN. Addition, the agreement called for the reform of several institutions, include the Bank of South Sudan, Anti-Corruption Commission, and the National Audit Chambers. Tribunal justice, which will help South Sudan heal from the atrocity committed during the conflict and move South Sudan forward peacefully. In this monthly paper, we feature the full life history from survivors, victims of Leer human container sexual-based violence, forceful disappearance and arbitrary arrest in national security below our service. The reliable and credibility of each witness and the victim was carefully assessed and considered the duration of the time since the event occurred, the level of the trauma, and how each witness extended the information. The interview were done in the variety of settings in protection of suicide in Juba. During my field research in Juba POC, I facilitated the forum to inform the survivors to discuss the transitional justice mechanism and peace implementation process in South Sudan. As you can see, I'm with the 4 survivors. They fall under different categories. 2 people were the survivors of Leer human container. 1 person was the victim of arbitrary arrest to national security. And the first person did not turn up, he was really busy. We was the victim of the arbitrary arrest at Tiger, a division at Gada. And during this discussion, the objective of these discussions is to increase the freedom of expression by the victim survivors, family members, and the witness on TJ, which is transitional justice and peace issues, articulated during the specific issues in Chapter 5 of peace agreement that was signed in 2018. 2, to increase the space for them to discuss the issues and prepare themselves to participate in the forums in any expectation time. The expectation of this discussion, a body of the information on a specific way on how the victim or the survivors will access the referral pathway. This increases the expression of the issues and the confidence that they were in. During this session, we discussed more about Chapter 5, transitional justice, accountability, and reconciliation, because in the Chapter 5 of Peace Agreement, Annex 5.1, the agreed principle for transitional justice is very clear. 5.1.1, upon establishment the article shall initiate the legislation for the establishment of the following transitional justice, transitional institutions, and observe the 35% representing those institutions. In the Chapter 5 of Peace Agreement also, I took them through 1.5.1.1, the Commission for Truth, Reconciliation and Healing, and among others mechanism method for enabling the CTRS to discharge its duty and responsibility. And within the same forum, I discussed with the victim and the survivors, plus the witness, about 5 in Chapter 5 of Peace Agreement, Article 5.2.1.3, the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, in collaboration with the stakeholders, the civil society shall conduct a public consultation for the period not less than 1 month, but now we are in a 3 years time of the peace agreement. The CTRS shall be also established by legislation which shall be formulated not later than 3 months after the formation of the RC-GONO. Now we are in the 3rd years of the peace agreement. And commanded activity not later than month. Peace agreement is very clear. I took the victim and the survivors to Chapter 5 of Peace Agreement for them to know, to adapt in the implementation of the mandates and the best practice for promoting truth and reconciliation healing process in South Sudan when Chapter 5 of Peace Agreement is implemented by the Secretary of Peace. During my session in Juba POC, I shared the historical context backgrounds of my research, the best efforts of what I'm doing. The South Sudan Civil War was the conflicts between the government and opposition force. So I took the participants through the historical backgrounds. So they know everything, but it is better for them at least to share with them what is the base foundation of what I'm doing. The Civil War was the conflicts between the government and opposition force in December 2013. President Kiir accused his former deputy Riek Machar and 10 others of attempting a coup Machar denied trying to establish a coup and fly the country to lead the SPLM in opposition, which is SPLM-IO. While outside South Sudan, fighting breakouts between the South Sudan oppositions and Uganda troops were also deployed to fight alongside South Sudan government, and the United Nations was peacekeeping is still in the country as a part of the United Nations agenda, but they did not make anything, but they managed to at least welcome the people's IDPs to their camps from Tongpins, and they brought them to Juba POC 3 and POC 2 plus POC 1. It began on the evening of Sunday, 15 December, at the meeting of the SPLM's National Liberation Council at the Ukraine neighborhood of Juba, South Sudan capitals, while opposition leader Dr. Riek Machar, Fagana Moms, which was the former Secretary General, and Rebecca Nyandeng, voted to boycott the meeting. The new civil war proved to be the disaster for the population, threat to integrity of the youngest nations, a state, and embarrassment and condemnation to the international community. And it highlights also the cause of the engagement, the consequence of the war for the people of South Sudan, the way in which peaceful settlement has been sought, but neighbor contends wars in some part of the country up to 2014. During 2014, an initiative and threat of sanctions was employed to prop the warring parties into the productive process of peace agreement, and with the limits success because each side and while waiting for the other to collapse. So the SPLM-IO and the government signed another peace again in 2018 following the signing of the revitalized peace agreement or resolution of conflict in the Republic of South Sudan, which is a revitalized agreement on 12 September 2018. The area in southern and northern parts of Unity State returned combat still the threats, security issues, and the incident. Those include the act of sexual-based violence, as well as inter-communal fightings and the cattle raidings, which result in the deaths, in the civilian deaths and the injured. Nevertheless, during this period, humanitarian access was restored to the southern Leer state, but was disrupted again around 22 April 2018 when the Jagay and flood the government force formed the operation and came and raid Leer, which also encouraged the return of the IDP who has been possibly displaced during the various push of the conflicts. Also, in April and May 2018, the conflict between the government and opposition was alongside with their respected allied armed militants intensify and result in the grassroots violation of international human rights law and international humanitarian laws. Those violations include the target attacks against the civilian and the killing at least 232 civilians, include 50 women, 35 children, and systemically rape girls and gang rape at least 120 women and girls. At least 40 villages in southern Leer was burned. That is the context background of what I'm doing. I'm highlighting this so that the victim and the survivors will know the area that we are focusing. I'm facilitating this forum at least to give me a referral pathway for me to make my work easy. Example, booking appointment with the victim one by one. First of all, I start taking the narrative history with a partner statement form of human rights defender and investigation form of South Sudan, which was designed to be used for the documentation process. This session gave me at least a time to explain how I will organize the interview with the victim or the family members of any crimes. Two, again, it gave me opportunity to hear more history face to face from the victims, survivors, and the family members. Three, it gave me more information about the context backgrounds of some area where I did not be during my research of 2018, 2019, 2020, during my collection missions with the different humanitarian and different human rights organizations. Again, for it gives the victim hopes at least to come and see and meet face to face the different victims of different kind of crimes, to interact among themselves, to discuss, listen one by one, listen how terrible situation they are in from one person to another person, and they sharing their experience how deep conflicts destroy the relationships of the whole South Sudanese, including starting from tribe, political parties, everywhere there's divisions. But this give hope to the victim and the survivors plus the public members to come together and sit and discuss the issues. After this session, this is where now I will book the appointment one by one to conduct the videos recording, and also recording the narrative history as a Arbitrary. This is opportunity for me to meet them all, but give me another best means for me to identify the other victims that they know which approach to approach the humanitarians or others who are survivors. Simple like this. Jones narrated the narrative history of victim of arbitrary arrest at Nile Security Service Blue House in Juba, South Sudan. John explained the Nile Security Service Force operates their own checkpoint in around Juba capital and participate in joint operation carrying out within the SPLA. In some circumstances, APC belong to the Nile Security NSS, were used to support the fighters on foot. NSS, which is Nile Security Force, also arrested the civilians, brought them to NSS detention facility in Jebel Jalava and the riverside, which is their main prisons. The 21 victims state that the Nile Security Service using the tertiary to extract the information about the activity and whereabouts of other Nuer general who remain in Juba, who did not run together with Riek Machar and those who fly out to the bush. Although the Nile Security and the SPLM and the SPLA are the separate entity and operate independently, the Commission gathered the evidence which indicate they are cooperate, particularly the Nile Security and the SPLA Military Intelligence Directorate. Multiple sources say detention, particularly those being held, in transporting them from local facility outside Juba, but they don't know the location of that unknown facility. Describe being transport between security agent to security agent. Sometimes Nile Security go to the military intelligence directorate prison within the SPLA to come and pick the people who were captured by the MI. Sometimes MI went to the Nile Security and hand over some people by themselves. That is what John's highlight about Nile Security Service, which is NSS. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation and being with you today. And before we go ahead, so I do really appreciate your time, and I would like to introduce myself. I'm by name Jack Dengar Kekmanyang. I'm a human rights defender working with the Junub Aid Media. I move around doing documentation. Please, can you tell me your name? Thank you. I'm by name's Jones Dajesh. Today we are going to talk about the problem that you faced during the conflicts of 2013. When the war broke out, where were you? When the war broke out, I was in Juba capital. I was at home in Godelitu residential area. When the war broke out, what have you seen? I can't believe at the start of the conflict until I saw civilians being killed by men in uniform, in military uniform, hours to hours, targeting a one civilian, targeting a one tribe. When the situation was, I went to my friend's house. The man is from Mandara tribe. He managed to get me out from Gudela 1 to Unimis, POC 1, where I find many people living in their condition without water and enough food. When I reach Unimis POC, I start thinking about my children in Bentiu. I spent months before I came to Unimis in which I witnessed a lot of atrocity committed by men in uniform. I have seen children, women, girls, boys, elder people were burned alive. John, when you reach to the POC camp, in POC, so the living condition was very bad because many people were running for their safety, left everything, include basic needs like water, food, medication. Where to live at night was terrible, nothing covering your body. When you come to POC, how does it happen? You had been caught again and arrested. September 2015, situation was normal. People started moving from Unimis POC at the daytime to the town and come back around evening hours fearing for safety outside Juba. Within the month of September, one of my friends from Denka called me, makes an appointment to meet me at the checkpoint markets next to the Unimis POC. So we met at the tea shop. It starts reviewing our life story, asking well-being of our kids from both sides within some minutes. Pick up with the soldier in uniform, come to us in the tea shops where they start telling us, 2 of you get in the car. If any of you try to run there, it will be the end of his life. Better to come with us to Nile security operation at the riverside. How many days did we spend? The first day, when we reached there, they put us in the different cell where I don't know. I didn't meet the friend again doubting about my arrest. I think it was set up and coordinated by some element. Used my friend to put me in the cell. Because that was the first time we met since the beginning of the conflict in 2013. What I remember the first day they took me to their operation base at Jalaba. I spent 8 days. And for many we are already there, but with a different case. The first day I was interrogated, accused of having a group of unknown gunmen with the intention of causing insecurity in Juba in collaboration with some Mandari criminals around capital city. After 8 days, I was transferred to another prison at the riverside near Bentiu Town, where I stayed there for 2 months before they transferred me to Bulu House in Jabal. The first day of interrogation at the riverside prison, one of the generals inside corrected the excuse and dismissed the case at the Ajalava. Dismissed the case as a setup because John was no trial. In Ajalava, what have you seen? During the interrogation at the riverside prison, I was beaten for more than 2 hours. They keep asking me many questions, except that if you have a group of unknown gunmen around Juba, At the noon-date, I was transferred to Blue House, where living conditions, not like Ajalava Riverside. In the Blue House, the living space was better because they allow ICRC International to provide some basic items with the close supervision of well-being of the prisoner. Do you recognize anybody? Yes, I recognize some people. Some of them stay there. The bad thing in the Blue House, no movement, only during the day of the lunch and dinner, where you different people, you saw many people in the big number. Nuermen, I saw Bakosoro there. During the first time I was there, every Thursday they take people from cell, never return back, whether they release or kill. I'm not sure about where they are taking them. Sometimes at night and the morning for investigation. The guy that I found at the administrative area say don't beat anybody. John, when you are in Ajalava, did they beat you? But they did not beat me at the riverside, but they beat me when I was at Ajalava. There at riverside, I stayed there for 3 months at the riverside prison from November up to December. When they brought you in, did they ask some question? No, they just put me in the prison without any interrogation or any question. And when you reach the Blue House, how is the living condition? It is the same like Ajalava or the riverside. In the Blue House, the living space was better because they allow IRC to provide some basic items with the close supervision of well-being of the prisoner. The bad thing in the Blue House, no movement in the Blue House. No movements, only during the time of the lunch and the dinner, where you meet the different people. We come from different cells because there is a different cell. I saw many people in the big number were Nuermen. Yes, there was a Nuermen. During the time I was there, every Thursday they took people from cell. The people that I saw there, a lot of Nuermen and Bakosoro. I saw by myself. John, I know you have been, you went through different situations at the different cell. I know how you feel. So anything that you can add in this process, or do you remember anybody who was taken from the cell and killed? During the time I was there every Thursday, so they took people from the cell and never returned back. Whether they were released or not, I'm not sure about where they are taking them. Sometimes at night and sometimes at the morning hours. John, thank you very much. Since the signing of the peace agreement, 2018 revitalized peace agreement, how did you cope up with the situation? What do you know about the peace agreement? My opinion about the peace implementation, I'm not seeing peace being implemented by the signatory to the peace agreement, because since 2018 up to date, we are still in chapter 2, which is security arrangement. That can give us a hope to all those responsible for the atrocity committed during the conflict. What I'm seeing, peace agreement is not yet implemented as possible. What can you tell to the victim or the survivors or the family members of the different crime? What can you tell them? My message to the victims, survivors, witness, family members: the war is not easy. To get out from war, mindset sometimes it need a different strategy to cope the living condition, because we have seen people that been killed. What happened in our country was something unbelievable. We are men in uniform targeting a one tribe in capital, Juba, killing, raping, and burning people alive. I can say this is a terrible situation.